2 o'clock sharp. Hello and a warm welcome to our symposium, How Do We Live Tomorrow? New Ways to Social Housing in Europe. My name is Johannes Luther. I'm heading the Future Cities team at Urban Innovation Vienna, which is a Vienna-based think tank on essential future urban issues. And together with my colleague, Benedikt Luger, we are glad to moderate you through the next 2 afternoons. This symposium is part of a comprehensive program of the International Building Exhibition IBA Vienna that is celebrating its interim presentation year this year with a series of events, of guided tours and other activities. And at the same time, it's the kick-off of a partnership of the city of Vienna with several other cities throughout Europe, plus Vancouver, Canada, to exchange experiences and know-how on housing issues. And the idea was that an international building exhibition should not only be a local presentation of achievements to a global audience, but also should mean engaging in an international dialogue on questions of housing within this network. We would have loved to welcome all our partner cities in Vienna on the occasion of this symposium. Unfortunately, reality kind of outran us, and so we're finally ending up in the internet, but glad to have you all here and to do our program via an online meeting. We have tried to not to lose any items of our program, and still to kind of condense the program into two afternoon sessions that are not too long. After all, it should be an inspiring dialogue and not an exhausting one, or not only exhausting. This also means that we will not be able to debate or to discuss all the questions on our agenda in all details. We will touch a few items that we will not discuss to the end, but still we hope this is rather a kick-off, the start of an exchange that we will continue in the next years, and we're looking very much forward to this. 2 points of housekeeping first. On the one hand, I would ask all participants, and I think you have done so, to mute your microphones as long as you're not speaking. This is just for technical reason. Secondly, please be aware of the fact that for documentary reasons, we will record our meeting. In 2 ways. We will do an audiovisual recording, and secondly, we will have a graphic recording. Our graphic recorder Lana has already started her drawing, and we will show you the results in the break in between. So I hope that up to now, most of our participants have overcome all technical burdens and are online. And that's the moment where we'll hand over to Bernadette to welcome our partner cities.
Thank you, Johannes. Dear partner cities, after intensive preparation and inspiring conversations over the last couple of weeks and months, I'm very happy to finally welcome all of you. As Johannes has already mentioned, unfortunately, a meeting in person didn't work out this time, but we will manage this in the next couple of months or next year. Nevertheless, we are looking forward to our first digital get-together. So a very warm welcome to our participants of Dublin. I'm already seeing a couple of joining in the meeting. Herzlich willkommen den Teilnehmerinnen aus München, Stuttgart, Köln und Berlin. And please excuse my pronunciation. Bienvenido a los participantes de Barcelona. We are very happy to start this meeting and the afternoon all together. And back to Johannes.
Thank you. And of course, a warm welcome to all Viennese participants who are joining us. You know that via the chat function, you can always engage us, and we see all your comments and questions, and we'll feed them into the discussion. Finally, a welcome to our actual host, the team of IBA Vienna. And I would like to hand over to Kurt Hofstetter for his introduction of the IBA and for his welcoming words for this event. Kurt, are you there?
Yes, thank you. and thank you for supporting us with this event. I'm very happy that we have the possibility to do that now online. We really would have loved to have all of you in Vienna. We quite made a lot of effort for our exhibition, which is running well, but of course we cannot host people like you, especially from other countries. So that's a pity, but it's a fact. So please also check our website. Everything is on there, and you can also get a quite nice view of what we're doing. Thank you all the partner cities that you are here now. And I just starting with the presentation and giving an overview what IBA Vienna is doing and why we wanted to invite you to have this discussion, and maybe to have this discussion over the next 2 years, which would be great. And we can discuss this tomorrow after the 3 sessions. The International Building Exhibition, it has a long tradition. You know that. Vienna decided to take the topic of new social housing, which was not very obvious for many people, because they said, well, you are quite well in social housing anyway, why are you doing an international building exhibition on this topic? But it's exactly because we have quite some experience and a long tradition, and we need to maintain that. We need to always develop it further, and we always also see that, especially in these times, many countries, many cities more and regions are coming to Vienna to look at what we are doing, what we have been doing about our tradition, and trying to see what could we take or as an inspiration to other cities. And we saw that many cities in all over Europe do have the same problems, and many cities do really develop very interesting and innovative projects and processes. So we wanted to make this visible. When we are having our expo in 2 years, in 2022, we do not just want to talk about what has Vienna done or what is Vienna doing, but also to make visible what is happening in other cities around the topic of social housing, and to make visible that this topic is on such a broad level, and there are so many ideas we all can learn from each other. This is the main focus and the main reason why I really wanted to invite other cities and make also visible what we are all doing. So we call that corresponding cities in the beginning, so that we will have a correspondence about the next 2 years. And as you can see on the eye of Internationale, there is also the Housing for All link, which is one of the main reasons to make it visible. We will come to that more in detail later, and especially tomorrow when Karin Zahner will give us an introduction into that topic. So IBA, it's I-B-A or E in English. Of course, it means building as well. It's not only international, it means building. So we are presenting what has been built over some years in 2 years. And we are now in a situation where we can make an exhibition in Vienna about what is on the way to being built. Many building construction sites you can already visit. Some projects are already finished, and some are just about to start and should be finished in 2 years. So that will be interesting to see then everything finished. And exhibition, it's very clear. We are not only doing an exhibition as we are doing it now in Vienna, but in 2 years it will be an exhibition of what has been built within this time. So Vienna, of course, has a long tradition. That should be clear. We didn't just start now. And this just gives some hints, and many of you know it, starting with the Red Vienna more than 100 years ago, about Werkbundsiedlung, as many other cities have Werkbundsiedlungen in Europe, going to the gentle urban renewal that Also, Berlin has a long and very intense tradition of this. Alt-Erla, or one of the last examples, is that Aspen. So that should show that we are, like in waves, always trying to create some innovations and to do steps further. And now with IBA, we are just doing the next step. What is very important to understand, especially in an international context, is how we use the term social. When we talk about social housing, we are not talking about the poorest of the poor or the most vulnerable ones. In Vienna, we are more or less talking about societal context. And that is why more than 60% of Vienna's population are living in social housing projects or in projects that have been erected within the system of social housing. Just to give you some numbers about the net income thresholds, an example what that means. So it's very easy to access social housing. You can earn quite a lot of money to be included into the social housing concept, but then you also have to pay something. This would lead to a different explanation, but it just should show you it's not about the poorest, it's about mixing society and really having a good situation in all of the city, not just in some places. So that leads to the housing policy, and I just would like to focus on the first line here. This is numbers from 2018 that Daniel Glaser has put together. 84% of all the funding is going into object funding, which means funding goes into the house, not to the subjects, not to the people. And 16% is going to people who need that, which is really important. But what is even more important is that the main funding is going into the house to prevent, as a means to prevent speculation, to work against speculation. And that is one of the main pillars. We will come to that later when we talk about affordability. Main pillars of our housing policy. If we would put money into subject funding, it would more or less potentially passing through from the public to the private sector, which is definitely not what we aim for in our policy. So when we started IBA, we talked about what are the topics coming towards us as in a proactive approach. Very clear climate adaptation, not only climate change, but what are we doing against it? How can we protect people from heat and other results of climate change? And the changeability and flexibility of uses, not only on the ground floor, also in the flats. The tight budget situation, every city knows that exactly in the same way. This is a global development, of course. And also social aspects of housing are global developments, like income gap going wider, and so the notion of affordability or payability, as you say it in German, for example, are getting more interesting. The main topics for IBA Vienna, therefore, are new social neighborhood, qualities and responsibilities. Just a few notions what we mean by that. We found out that social neighborhoods is the main factor where we can move the most and to bring together innovations in a way that really people can profit when it's done well. This is why this is such an important measure, and we will see in the first session when we talk about neighborhood development what we mean by that. Social qualities is very clear. It's about efficiency. It's about how do we deal with social changes, new forms of living and working, bringing them together. And new social responsibility means more or less bringing in new actors that are not on the screen up to now, but that are really needed to help these innovations on their way. So there is a map of the sites we are working at. We have 9 huge neighborhoods and 15 single projects. In total, it's more than 100 projects we're working with. Some examples, BIOTOPE City Wienerberg, we will talk about that in the third session more when we talk about climate adaptation. Then also some of the single projects that are working about climate adaptation in existing buildings. That's important because we have such a huge load of existing buildings where it's difficult, for example, to put green facades on and things like that. So there are very creative ways to do that are also subsidized by the city now. We have single projects that are working on CO2 reduction, energy efficiency, recycling management. So we will talk about those in section 3 more. Some we will talk about in section 2. In session 2 is with affordability. We also have 2 examples of temporary housing. This is interesting because temporary housing is in fact a no-go for the general housing policy, but shall be offered as a short-term support for sudden needs. In this case, there was a program in Vienna in 2015 when this huge refugee movement was also seen in Vienna, and we had to deal with that and try to find out what could we do to offer housing very quickly, and we will talk about this in session 2 more. These are just a few examples of what we're doing locally. There is a lot of cooperations, especially with Gebietsbetreuung. I don't know, Angela, how you would say that in English, but it's it's the way of working with people on a local level very intensely, really one-to-one. And this is one of the greatest supporters for what we're doing in IBA, because it's the way of transporting and transforming the ideas and making them understandable. And this is what we're doing now. This is impressions from our exhibition that's going on at the moment with a lot of events. So please take a chance and look at the website if you have time. And this is my short introduction within less than 15 minutes. I hope that's fine for urban innovation. Thank you.
We have structured the program along the 3 main topics that are, on the one hand, at the core of the IBA Vienna, and at the same time meet the interests of our partner cities. We have tried to work that out in the run-up of this conference. The 3 items are sustainable neighborhood development, affordability and new forms of housing, and thirdly, climate adaptation and sustainability. In each of the sessions, each of those sessions will follow the same structure. We will have a short introduction of the topic with examples from the IBA Vienna. We will then have a short interview with an expert outside of the IBA team to reflect on the topic and on the examples. Then we're looking forward to the impulse presentations by the partner cities, and we will round that up with a round of discussions on the challenges that we are all facing and on the specific solutions that the partner cities and the IBA Vienna have found. So let's start with the first topic, which is neighborhood development. Kurt has already said that this was a topic that was one of the leitmotifs of IBA Vienna from the very beginning. We have asked Kurt Hofstetter to present in 10 to 15 minutes what we would have shown us in a 3-hour study tour this morning. So thank you, Kurt, for accepting that challenge. The floor, the digital floor is again yours.
Thank you. So 3 hours in 10 minutes, this will not be the case. In fact, I will just briefly go through 6 of the 9 neighborhoods and give you just hints what we're doing there and why. So the first one is a neighborhood in WOLFGANGGASSE. It's a kind of small one, it's 850 flats, and was one of the first developments within a developer competition, as we have it in Vienna. It's a very special tool to go into competitions and to find out who will be able to build. It's always teams. And WOLFGANGGASSE was the first one that was focusing on single-parent households and solutions for single parents. We can see that single parents is one group in our society that is increasing quite intensely and is also endangered by, let's say, by poverty, or is endangered, or needs a lot of private support, and is not really visible as a group that is kind of vulnerable. So it makes really sense to go into that topic and to find new ways of, on the soft measure level, like which kind of processes could you offer, which kind of ways to get easily access to flats in the moment when they need it, because usually situations can change. Suddenly a family is breaking up and one partner with the children needs space very quickly. How can we get access to that? And on the other hand, how can we make the neighborhoods better so that you can find around there what you need for the daily needs? And the third level is how can you make your flats more flexible so that it's possible to have an extra room or to combine rooms or things like that. And you don't have to change your flat because your living situations just have changed. So this was the one and first example with great results. It's just in the beginning of being built and will be finished around 2022. Very interesting to see that when it will be done. Then Seebogen is part of Seestadt Aspern. Many of you might know the first phase of Aspern Seestadt, which has already been finished. Now there are 8,000 people living there. And what we can see here is the next phase that is just about to start to be in construction. First houses will be finished 2022, and the whole new neighborhood will be finished 2022 as well. And so what we can see here is also developer competitions that work together, but also with the general developer of the whole property. There have been workshops, developer workshops, where all the companies, all the planners are working together on regular basis and trying to improve their plannings, to always come back, make sure that what they are planning is matching, and that everything is provided, that as soon as houses are ready and people can move in, also on the ground floor level, there is uses that are already filled, and that this doesn't just start afterwards. But there is a lot of development around sports, activity, health, and together with the park development, together with a huge school, a youth center, all these developers are now working together to make a vivid neighborhood from the beginning. It's very interesting. Seestadt Aspern has a lot of experience, of course, from the first phase, and is using this experience to learn from their own experience. So it's not just, oh, now we have done something, let's go on. It's really looking back, trying to find out what have we done not so well, what could be improved, what is new on the market. And so this is a very interesting development, where you can see that, for example, the next one, Bergsgasse, has already learned from what is going on in Seestadt. That's also for us very interesting. You can see one of the pictures in the middle. This huge group is a group of all the developers with one planner and working together on a plan that brings together all their ideas from the first phase of the developer competition. Again, Gebietsbetreuung has a huge role here and is very helpful, because There's a lot of people living there already. So a lot of questions coming up, a lot of like feelings, oh, we don't know what's happening there. Is this good for us? Does it help us? Do we have to be in fear or whatever? So these people who are working there, and Angela Salchiger is in this round. She's the head of Gebietsbetreuung for the North. They're really making sure that people have a chance to understand what's going on, to have a chance to say what they need. This is then transported and it's processed and has a chance to also find a way into the general process. Very important. This is quite huge. It's 3,000 units that are being built, and the school is already finished. And what we could see in the next step, there is another developer competition that was not so far away from Berchtesgaden locally, but was started later, that all the developers and the planners have again learned from what they have done in Berchtesgaden and did one step further. So that's really encouraging for us to see that it's worth to engage, it's worth to do this kind of tough job, bringing people together all the time, because it really has a result. And in this case, you could see some influence from the other competitions before, but also from Biotope City, for example, because there were some experience how to work with bigger trees, how to work with sponge city system, how to work with new ways of creating like green areas and things like that. And there is a development that's completely different. It's next to the central station in Vienna, Sonnenviertel. It has started earlier, and it's almost non-funded. Only a few projects here are funded, and the most is private market housing. But there is a very strong contract with the city and with the landowner who sold the land, which made clear that all these special houses had to think about what can they do to improve the neighborhood and to bring something that is not just good for themselves, but also for the development of the neighborhood. This is now in a process that most of the houses are already finished or soon will be finished. So you can see first results. It's very interesting, a lot of creativity, because it was not easy to do this. And what I can see is for the system of the city of Vienna, we really can learn that we can take some of the pressure that is lying on the funded housing. Funded housing usually provides everything, all the measures that are working and that are making a neighborhood well and functional, and then private housing is just coming and using that. Now with this, what we can learn here is that you can change that, and that if you define special areas that are really not funded but have special tasks, they can do something that's really helpful and that maybe is not possible for the funded housing on the other side. That's a good learning tool for the city and for the city planning, but also for the whole development in the city. And as a last example, I would love to bring in Per Albin Hansson Siedlung. It's a community building or municipal building, as you say, with 16,000 inhabitants. It's huge. Was erected in the 1960s and 1970s, and now is part of a process of transformation from the 1970s into the future. It's a long process. What you can see here is how we started with art, more or less, to create trust, to build up trust with people, and to prepare for the cooperation that is now going on and now starting. A lot of measures that people have told us what they need, how the city has to change without changing too much. It's a difficult balance to find out. and this process just has started now. Really, what we did before is what you can see, making visible how beautiful it is, which kind of good reputation you can also have in this city. Sometimes the municipal housing doesn't have a good reputation and people are suffering from that. So we needed to change the energy first, and now it's prepared to really work with people. And WIENERBERG, who is running this and is responsible for 220,000 flats in the city, which is extremely huge. They are doing a very good process now and bringing in what we need to see then as an example for other developments. So this is more or less my introduction and to show you which kind of projects do we have within the topic of sustainable neighborhood development. I'm giving back to urban innovation, Lias.
So thank you, Kurt, for your digital tour through some of the IBA projects. We could see very well that IBA Vienna is not only about new projects, but very much also about neighborhood development in already existing areas, in the building stock and in renewal. Before we start with the impulse lectures of our international partner cities, please welcome Daniel Glaser for a brief interview on Vienna's position on neighborhood development. Daniel is a housing expert since 2019, chairman of the Housing Initiative Advisory Board and interface coordinator for budget and controlling at the Department of Housing Promotion and Arbitrary for Legal Housing Matters at the City of Vienna. Welcome, Daniel. Daniel, do you hear me?
Hello, Bernadette. Hello.
Hi, Daniel. As we've just heard from Kurt in his introduction, neighborhoods form the hub of social interaction in a city and are key theme of IBA Vienna. So what can housing itself contribute to neighborhood development and accordingly to the spatial and social qualities of new urban neighborhoods?
Thank you very much for our introduction. It's nice to be here, with you and discuss the afternoon. I want to start perhaps with some ideas, because in my opinion, housing itself, with all its qualities concerning architecture, open space, the attractive ground floor area, is of course important for a good neighborhood, for neighborhood development, but not only in this functional understanding, but also in a understanding that housing or new city quarters should offer an attractive and secure environment with housing security, with stability to the people, to the inhabitants. And I think this is very important because in Vienna we understand housing as a public service. And that means that a public service is an offer from the city administration, from the city society to the inhabitants. And it's also a message that the city cares about how people in Vienna live. We care about the living quality, the housing quality, about attractive neighborhoods. And it's not only a matter of the market, it's a public matter. And I think this is a very important message from the very beginning.
Thank you very much. So how does the city show this? How does the city of Vienna achieve that sustainable urban development is done? What are central housing policy and quality management instruments for ensuring these social and good neighborhoods, as we call them?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think it's neighborhood development begins not after the finishing of the buildings. It's it starts at the very beginning, And I think in Vienna we are in a very comfortable situation because we have a lot of instruments as Kurt, for example, mentioned before, the city of Vienna, Wiener Wohnen, owns about 220,000 municipal flats. And of course, these flats are very affordable, and they are all over the city, so that the affordable flats are not only somewhere in the outskirts, but also in the first district. The city of Vienna owns very affordable flats. And of course, a very important actor is the Wohnfonds Wien. The Wohnfonds Wien is a public fund, a public non-profit fund owned by the city of Vienna. And the fund is responsible for the land management. Together with the urban planning department, the Wohnfonds Wien provides affordable land for affordable housing, and so that is possible to construct new affordable and subsidized housing all over in all these urban development areas. And as Kurt also mentioned before, this developers competition, this is also an important instrument that is also managed and executed by the Wohnfonds Wien. Yeah, furthermore, also there are a second segment of social housing, not only the municipal flats, but also the flats owned by so-called limited profit housing associations. In Vienna, about 200,000 flats are owned by these non-profit or limited profit housing companies. And of course, together with these companies, it's possible to build about 5,000 to 7,000 affordable flats each year in Vienna, because as a city, it's not possible to manage all these works and this construction works and the planning works for the housing estates. And last but not least, I think since 2 years, we have a new zoning category, the zoning category for subsidized housing. And I think this is an instrument, a very new instrument, and I think this should make it possible for the future to allocate affordable land also under the current circumstances on the land market.
Thank you, Daniel, for giving a brief introduction to the topic. We will later in the second session also have the chance to speak to Martin Orner, who is the chairman of one of the limited profit associations, so we can discuss further topics with him. So far, thank you very much. We will later also in the discussion have time to keep on talking about the matter further. For now, I would like to continue with our first impulse lectures of the symposiums presented by our partner cities, Berlin, Cologne, and Munich. In order to meet the tight time frame, dear speakers, please present your city's approach in roughly 10 minutes. Thank you for that. Dear audience, to everyone who is listening, of course, you're welcome to send us questions and comments via the chat functions that you find in the tool. We will then take up your comments during our discussion that follows the impulse lectures. And for the first speaker, please welcome Manfred Kühne, Head of the Department of Urban Development and Projects at the Berlin Senate Department of Urban Development and Housing. He will give an impulse on Haus der Statistik in Berlin. Welcome, Kurt Kühne.
Thank you very much for the invitation to this conference. I have to apologize in the beginning. Our administration is moving out. Sometimes there may be a roaring in the background. I'm the last man standing in this building, but anyway, I want to give you a flashlight what is going on in Berlin. I hope you agree that I give in the beginning you an idea what is the background of social housing development and qualification of social-oriented neighborhoods. And I will start and show you that we share heritage with Vienna. In this year, we have the celebrations not only for the 30 years of the reunification of the city, 150 years of Berlin as a German capital, but also of 100 years of Greater Berlin. After the German Empire collapsed, it was able to integrate the entire metropolitan area of Berlin. And since that time, for 80 years, affordable housing on a very, very high architectural and urbanistic level was one of the major goals of urban development in Berlin. From the 1920s housing estates that are today listed as World Heritage. We had two IBAs in 1957 and 1987. And all this was possible, like in Vienna, with a combination of big government, big administration, and big funding for the social housing sector. All these three circumstances do not exist in Berlin anymore since the 2000 budget crisis in the city, where we had to reduce our administrations and had a long sellout process. We had a sellout of every property that was welcome on the market. But we are lucky that not only the big public institutions are a source of creativity and design innovations. We also look back in this year on 40 years of a strong squatting movement in former West Berlin and 30 years in the east of Berlin. Since that time, civic society, local initiatives are rallying continuously, and they got a lot of influence on the decision-making processes in urban development in Berlin. And today, they are also a relevant factor on the non-profit developing market. It was the initiative of many, many activists that brought back a new economic basis for Berlin. Berlin, in the last 15 years, developed as one of the major startup hubs in Europe. And all that is connected with many, many initiatives and the self-empowerment and the self-organization capacities of local projects in the civic society. This process is now challenged by gentrification on the one hand, because since a few years we are not anymore the capital of unemployment in Germany. Before the Corona crisis came, Berlin experienced, to our complete surprise, that we are the fastest growing economical hub in Germany. And that's the reason why we need a new real estate policy, and we need urgently new programs for social housing. And we do not sell properties anymore. That's the end of many, many Baugruppen and other cooperative investment projects in Berlin. And for us, it is urgent to integrate now the experiences and the development strategies of many, many initiatives to our own major development projects. The most ambitious experiment field in this sector is at the moment Haus der Statistik. It's a ruin quite in the heart of Berlin. It is an abandoned office building where the communist government of East Germany steered the economical development of the socialist country. In the middle of the refugee crisis in 2015, many activists in Berlin rallied that the city of Berlin should buy this building from the federal government and in order to start a cooperative development process with artists, refugees, and other groups of civil society who cannot anymore afford to stay, to live, and to do their businesses in central areas of Berlin. This campaign was successful, and the city of Berlin bought this property, and we started 3 years ago a common development process. The biggest challenge in this process is not design or the orientation toward advanced resilience strategies. The biggest challenge for us is that for the first time in Berlin, city-owned companies, city-owned housing company, BBM, WBM, and the city-owned real estate company, BIM, that is in charge of offering office space for the administration. They try to find organization models and cooperation models with an initiative from the civil society that's called Zusammenkunft Berlin. And this initiative has the mission from the city parliament to be part of the development and to have an influence on the decision-making processes and in the future management of the project from the beginning. Fourth partner in this cooperation process is the borough of Mitte, the central borough of Berlin. The colleagues there need a new city hall for the borough, and they want to find out how an innovative city hall of the 21st century could be designed and what should be the differences in comparison to regular office space. We, as the fifth partner in the cooperation, the Senate Department, we are eager to share the experiences, and we are co-funding this experimental process and organize competitions, design workshops, and support in this way the long design and development process. On the right part of the slide, you see this cooperative development process. We began 2 years ago, and the last part of the project, the City Hall for borough is expected to be finished in about 10 years. So we have a project with a long-standing cooperation need. And the most important resource we need in this process is trust, enthusiasm, and patience. At the moment, we are at the beginning of the reconstruction works for the existing buildings. It's the buildings in dark blue on the slide. In this existing buildings, there will be established in 2004 traditional administration spaces for the city-owned real estate company, BIM, and for regular tax administration. But from the beginning, there will be in the ground floors and in the most prominent building close to Alexanderplatz, there will also be space for the initiative of civil society, ZKB. In a second step, there will be a housing project for about 300 flats constructed by the city-owned BBM company. They are already owner of many buildings in the surrounding from the 1970s. And then will follow the city hall. And in all these buildings, in the ground floors and in 2 additional smaller buildings, the ZKB initiative will be part of the development for the beginning. After the urban design process that was very participative, we involved many people from the surrounding neighborhoods and from many parts of Berlin. We have a vision how the public spaces inside the quarter and the public spaces that will connect the quarter to the business district of Alexanderplatz will look like, and what will be the resilient qualities that we don't have yet in the private development projects in the surrounding. The most vital part of the development is the pioneer process. The activists of the year 2015 that are now organized as the ZKB initiative, they had the option as a result of a steering process with a pioneer committee to bring activists from everywhere in the city into the existing houses that are ruins at the moment. And so from the beginning, we had a high credibility in the neighborhood and also in the activist scene of Berlin, and also among the decision makers, that there will be an option to offer continuously during the planning and construction period, and as well when the project will be finished, not only affordable space for housing and for administrations, but also affordable space for many cultural activities, for social initiatives, and people who will join the invitation to take over 20% of the existing and of the constructed space in the new buildings, and also the conquer the public spaces. So for us, this process is very challenging for all partners in the cooperation of 5 stakeholders. For city-owned companies, up to now, there is no legal basis to give a say and a co-decision making to activists from civil society, because they have to follow very strict rules, European standards, national standards, local standards, how to spend public money and how to steer planning and construction process on a city-owned side. But in the next step, we will elaborate new legal frameworks and new forms of contract to guarantee that the initiatives of civic society can continuously be a relevant partner on equal levels with the political decision makers on the borough and the Senate level, and also the city-owned companies. So we hope in the end, it will not only be a dream to transform Alexanderplatz into Alles Andersplatz, an all different place where we have learned how to cooperate on equal levels and to give up the established co-ignorance modes that we practiced for more decades in the urban development sector, where we always were active with city-owned companies, but were never really in contact with the activists from the alternative development sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manfred Kühne, for your input and your insight into Berlin's civil engagement and creative activities contributing to sustainable neighborhood development. We will answer questions at the end after all the impulse lectures, and I would like to welcome now our next speaker, Erik Diversi from Moderne Stadt, Cologne. Moderne Stadt is an association for the promotion of urban planning and community development. And Erik Diversi will give an impulse on the development of the Gluth district. Welcome, Erik Diversi. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Thank you for introducing me. Pleased to tell you today about one of our projects in Cologne. I'm just getting the control, which is the QUARTIER. This is Moderne Stadt GmbH. We've been involved since more than 50 years in urban and project development for our shareholders. Can you click one? Oh, that's me. For our shareholders, which is the City of Cologne and the Stadtwerke Köln-Konzern. Our urban development projects follow the so-called Inner City Master Plan. I hope you can see it now in the background. Our urban development projects follow the Inner City Master Plan. You can now see it in the background of the slide. It's an overall urban planning concept pursued by the City of Cologne and designed by Speer & Partner Architects in 2009. The overview here shows how our projects are integrated in this master plan, but I'll be introducing you now to Gluth, which is near the River Rhine and the city center. Gluth, what is it? The project name is based on the Gluth Gummiwerke, a rubber manufacturing company grounded in the 19th century. They invented and manufactured pioneering industrial products made of rubber, like conveyor belt systems, technical components, and hot air balloons, as well as zeppelins. The success story of Gluth ended, unfortunately, in 2005. The industrial plant closed, and what remained was an area spanning 14.5 hectares, enclosed by a 3-meter high brick wall, completely isolated from the neighborhood, with kind of useless buildings, industrial waste, and heavily contaminated soil. The City of Cologne bought this area in 2012 and decided to develop the site and took this draft plan as the basis for the future development. What makes the design special is that it's built on the existing structures and integrates the listed halls, parts of the historic enclosing walls, and old gate buildings into the new planning. The site has been developed by us, by Moderne Stadt, since 2012, and the aim is to create a lively and diverse quarter with around 1,240 apartments and around 500 workplaces, artist studios, space for creative professions, cafes, restaurants, open spaces, all this well integrated into the borough. Achieving this goal hasn't been easy so far. So listed buildings were protected and other buildings were demolished and gutted. Fundamental tasks that needed to be performed included soil and groundwater remediation, ensuring the future energy and water supply, as well as supplying the districts with data communication and creating infrastructure and mobility solutions for the new residents. The integration of Moderne Stadt in our corporate network of the Stadtwerke Köln Group with its public services has proven just as conductive as the close communication with the building and planning office of the city of Cologne. Clute is right in the middle of Nippes. This is the borough, and involved in very lively borough. It was never intended to be a newly built island. Rather, Clute was planned with a clear desire to interlink with its immediate surrounding and the city itself. So motorways are just a short distance away, and tram lines can be reached in a few minutes from walking distance from here. So to connect the Clute with the city. After a very comprehensive tendering process, the landscape architect office was commissioned to design the open spaces and traffic areas in Clute. The concept was to accentuate the existing qualities of the location through the open space design and the integration of urban greenery into the district. In particular, it was the Johannes Giesplatz Park, this one, which was separated from the area for decades. As places of connecting and gathering private and public green spaces, and the tree-lined streets form the green framework for this little district. It goes without saying that the diversity of functions, you see them here at the left and at your right-hand side, that those functions ensure a very great mix. But how was the land awarded to all those different parties? The building plots were awarded as part of what is known as a concept award procedure, in which applicants and investors were able to share their creative ideas for the development. An expert jury made of representatives from the city of Cologne, architects, planners, and scientists evaluated the designs. This process led to a great varied mix of functions. Today, we have the most diverse forms of living, working environments, culture and education, as well as social functions and leisure activities, already complemented each other perfectly in this one little district. Clute draws on the diverse local supply structure of the Nippes borough I told you before, which is complemented by many traditional local and young shops, workshops and cafes in the side streets, and giving the area a very special charm. The planning is based on the results of multiple commissionings awarded by Moderne Stadt or by the investors, and the architects were tasked with using the new buildings to respond typologically and structurally to the requirements of the various locations, and with implementing custom ideas and combining them into a coherent overall picture. The great mix, you see it here, is also ensured by the variety of parties who have effortlessly created living space in the form of townhouses, apartment buildings, each either privately financed, affordable for low-income earners, or publicly founded. Means a very colorful mix. Do not want to forget the Baugruppen, the building collectors. The result is, as I told you, a colorful district that is characterized above all by its different forms of living. This is very important for the social balance, which makes up the DNA of the neighborhood. Well, finally, we got awarded, in addition to other awards and prizes, including for architecture and recently also for the best municipal brownfield project. We're proud that Clute has also been recognized for its social development and planning in 2018. Thank you for your attention, and I'm giving back to Vienna.
Thank you, Eric Diversi, for your input, especially also for elaborating on how you're integrating the new development with the existing city and on the functional mix you're planning. We will discuss questions after the last impulse lecture, and therefore I would now like to welcome our last speakers for this session from Munich. Please welcome Nathalie Schaller from Mitbauzentrale Munich. Mitbauzentrale is an information hub for community-oriented living. And please welcome Carla Schilde, Department of Urban Planning and Building Regulation at the City of Munich. Nathalie Schaller and Carla Schilde are presenting consortial development in the city quarter. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, but I can't see, yes, now I see the presentation, thanks a lot. Yes, as you told, I'm not employed by the City of Munich. I'm Managing Director of Stadtbau Munich, and on behalf of the City of Munich, we were managing the Mitbauzentrale, as you already told, the central point of contact for all Munich citizens who are planning a cooperative housing project. But for the Prince Eugen Park, which is my today's topic, we have been commissioned by a consortium of builders to organize the development of the urban quarter and implement their goals. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. So the Prince Eugen Park is about 5 kilometers from the city center, and since 2017 on the 30-hectare site of the former Prince Eugen Barracks in Munich-Bogenhausen, a new district with about 1,800 apartments, about 5,000 people, and the associated social infrastructure has been built. 5 construction fields with about 570 residential units are designed as an ecological model settlement in timber construction. This is not my today's topic, but if you are interested in the latest detail, there's a detailed article about the timber construction area. This is not, oh yeah, okay. Here you can see the building clusters on the unused side. They had developed large trees, and so the city decided to put compact cluster sites in the middle of the green with different housing types, from the carpet settlements to or courtyard settlements to townhouses with 7 floors. According to the Munich Mix, the plots were awarded to municipal housing companies, housing cooperatives and building groups, and private developers for private and rental housing. They build a mix of condominiums and rental apartments, and 50% of the apartments are subsidized. Cooperative housing projects and building groups account for almost 40%. This does not really work very well, okay. So here you can see the working together of the different actors in the quarter, because the City of Munich has established the basis for the further development by providing planning prerequisites and by defining a framework and by incentives. For example, they did not award the land by the maximum of price, but in context of a concept such as space for community or mobility modules. The builders, they were the link between the objectives of the city of the urban planning and the expectations of the future residents. All 21 builders of the city quarter have joined force in a voluntary base. They defined their goals of developing a lively and livable quarter, such as need-based neighborhood concepts for community space, non-commercial infrastructure, or mobility concepts. Neighborhood creation and self-organization of the residents is also one of their goals. By awarding 40% of the land to self-organized residential projects, as I told, building groups and cooperatives, almost half of the later residents could be involved at a very early stage. And ultimately, however, it is the inhabitants themselves who have used the opportunity to shape their neighborhood. They are involved now in manifold ways and are committed to neighborhood life. To invent all this, we have started at a very early stage with information, because information is the first stage for us for participation. A website and a newsletter was set up and bundles all the necessary information for the residents and the neighborhood. And we invented at a very early stage networking meetings. Networking and exchange is the basis for commitment. So we initiated working groups, we made workshops, we organized neighborhood festivals. The self-organization was supported by the establishment of a neighborhood council in which residents from all houses were represented. It's the informal interface and advocacy. But at least we founded a neighborhood or a district cooperative, because from the very beginning, the work of the consortium was designed for a long-term establishment of a quarter management, which should be organized by the residents themselves. So the district cooperative GECKO was founded by a group of residents, and today it took over the management of the quarter. They provide services, they offer rental equipment, they maintain the common areas and courses in the district, they promote networking and exchange of neighborhood, organizes the festivals now, and the neighborhood activities. They operate the neighborhood cafe and the mobility center, which will open next week or in 2 weeks. So this does not really, yes. It's situated in the central place, and it will be the heart of the district. It will be operated by the GECKO district cooperative, and it's the central. It should be the central point of contact and service for the diverse needs for the resident population, and at the same time a meeting point. You will find there the service rooms of GECKO and their office, as well as the residence cafe and the mobility center. So a current overall concept for mobility was developed from many individual models with a wide range of mobility offers. I won't tell them all because it's too detailed and it would take too long time. Here you can see the wide range of different common rooms all over the district. Rooms for the house community, rooms for the neighborhood, co-working spaces, guest apartments, studios, music rooms for children's birthdays, parties, seminars, courses, whatever you want. You can book it on a booking platform on the website. Here you have some impressions from our first neighborhood festival in 2018, when only a third of the inhabitants had moved in, but you had already the feeling that everyone knows each other like in a grown village. We completed our contract this July, and the GECKO cooperative take over all what we started, but many of what we set ourselves is not 100% completed or is in a pilot phase. In many cases, we have entered new territory in terms of coordination, technical, especially technical and legal organization. But which really works well is the neighborhood networking and the commitment of the residence district. So you have an overlook to the Bayernkaserne, which will be the next development in a larger scale, 3 times the size of the Prinz Eugen Park, where we can profit from the experiences we made in the Prinz Eugen Park and transform it into a larger, and we'll try to transform it into a larger scale. Thank you a lot. I will give now Carla Schilder will continue with the with her topic.
Thank you very much, Natalie, and welcome to everybody. I'll try to speed up a little bit. My role in this symposium is to give an outlook to the regional cooperation to develop or improve housing processes and development in the region of Munich. I'm Carla Schilder. I'm responsible for these cooperations of the city of Munich, and right now I'm clicking the presentation, but it doesn't. Okay. Thank you. So I'll spare you the details of spatial planning in Bavaria. Let's say only so much that it's even worse than the rest of Germany, in my opinion. But this is too detailed for this room of symposium. The organization of spatial planning in Germany or in Bavaria leads the city of Munich to the necessity of regional cooperation. Our mayor, Dieter Reiter, mentioned this at the regional house building conferences as that he speaks of regional cooperation as a political necessity to solve the challenges of housing, especially housing in the region. I'll explain you why he just so. Of course, the whole region or metropolitan region of Munich shares the same obstacles and challenges. As you all may know, the housing prices in Munich have been high the whole time, and the already mentioned financial crisis sharpened these effects. The housing situation is directly related to the challenges of mobility. The employees in the region of Munich spend more and more time commuting, and the transport systems reach their capacity limits, and the mobility stress increases. 1/3 objective of regional cooperation is to maintain the qualities, especially of the landscapes and the free spaces. So, for example, already the first association of regional cooperation in the region of Munich, the Isar Valley Association, it was founded in 1902. Already was engaged, and is still until today, to buy areas in the Isar River Valley to protect them from real estate speculation. And the 4th objective is sometimes forgotten in all these picturesque objectives. It's to cover the demands in educational, social, and public facilities. The growth of population in the region of Munich requires continuous investments to maintain the existing and new facilities. And while many communes go into concurrence for prestigious projects like schools or colleges, it's much harder to find locations, for example, for waste treatment or energy production, of course. And one objective of our regional cooperation, and also a strategy, is the exchange through our already mentioned regional house building conferences. The exchange is a main topic for our regional cooperation, because here we can organize transfer of knowledge. We can provide possibilities to network together, and we can create kind of showcases for the best or the next practice of regional development. This slideshow shows impressions from our annual regional house building conference. Since 2014, we organize these conferences, and we established them as an appreciated and questioned platform. And there are two factors for success of this exchange. One is that there are no institutions or stakeholders or municipalities excluded, because there are no unimportant stakeholders or too small or too far away municipalities to take place in regional cooperation. And the second factor of success are the practical projects we agree or we declare as results of these conferences. I'll show you two of these projects to have an impression. I try to show it. Okay, the first is the award for building culture of the metropolitan region of Munich. This award, as many other awards, it doesn't only award the best practice examples, but tries to inspire and encourage others to follow these criterions on sustainable building of qualities and participation, to provide new social offers by the projects, and to improve the public spaces in the city or local centers. And we don't only award the projects with a concluding award ceremony, but we let follow this process touring exhibition and events, which you can see on the slide, to bring these informations about criterions and qualities to the decision makers of the next practice, and to create fellow followers to these examples. And we'll bring this exhibition to the whole of the metropolitan region and reach many people, mayors and citizens, even in the rural cities or communes. And we have a great there's a great response to this to these exhibitions and events.
Yeah, Carla-Schilde, sorry to interrupt you. I don't want to seem impolite, but please, we have to come to an end looking at our time schedule. Thank you very much for understanding.
Okay, I'll speed up even more. You have heard about the Mitbauzentrale or the Stadtbau, the consulting which the Stadtbau of Nathalie Schaller provides, and we enlarged this mandate to consult also the people in the region to engage in new housing models, and our city council finances this enlargement of the mandate. And to show you some of the stakeholders, I think this could be common. Here you see the metropolitan region of Munich, which reaches from Ingolstadt in the north to Rosenheim in the south and Augsburg in the west. So a large room which shares the challenges, as I said before. And in the end, I'd like to give you an outlook to what will be next practice in regional cooperation. We have the International Building Exhibition. We plan to do with the region about mobility issues, which is a huge challenge. It would be not the first regional EBA, but the first dealing with mobility issues. And we will try to bring innovation to the individual mobility behavior, also to the more sustainable quarters and meanings of mobility, and to a new regional governance to plan these things. And then we'll have, hopefully, soon a Vision 2040 for the region, which includes all these issues. This is a process we started at last year's regional house building conference, and we were and the participants declared that we should follow up this process, and this will be a great chance to improve regional cooperation to find a common vision and to have that in a participation process. And now my last slide. It shows the emblem of our regional house building conference, and in some way it symbolizes on the one hand the polycentric structure of the region of Munich with existing and to be developed centers and connections, and it illustrates our motto of the planet IBA, be present locally but be connected together. And this is a nice conclusion of this presentation, this surrounding. Thank you very much to have been invited to this symposium and to give a short outlook to regional cooperation and how it mirrors the strategies of housing policy in Munich in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nathalie Schaller and Carla Schilder. Sorry again for rushing you in the end, but we need to keep an eye on our tight schedule. I will now give over to my colleague, Johannes Luther.
Thank you. Also, thank you from my side for the inspiring presentations. Before we enter into the debate, I would like to introduce two further discussants from Vienna. Angela Saltjäger, she's associate at Stadtluft, which is an office supporting social neighborhood community processes with their analysis, communication, process management and moderation. And on behalf of the city of Vienna, she's coordinator of the local district manager in the area north of the Danube, and for instance has been involved in the neighborhood management of the IBA quarter Neu-Leopoldau. Welcome, Angela Saltjäger. And secondly, I'd like to introduce Roland Krebs, director of SuperWien, which is a studio for urbanism and architecture. He's also teaching at the Institute of Urban Design and Landscape Architecture at the Technical University here in Vienna. And he's specialized on stakeholder dialogue processes in earlier stages of neighborhood development. And I'd like to enter into discussion perhaps with a question to Roland. We have all the presentations how important it is for a vivid and multifunctional and integrated neighborhood development to integrate stakeholders from the very beginning. The question for me is how to ensure at a very early stage, how to assemble different stakeholders behind a common goal, and how to ensure kind of a dialogue on a high level. Do you have some experiences? Is the district cooperative model of Cologne something that could be interesting for Vienna too?
Yes, of course. We in Vienna, I was involved in the Sonnenviertel also. This is one of the IBA quarters that had a strong social and engagement, and it started very, very early, at an early stage, because if you don't set the project well in the beginning, it will not happen that the social inclusion will happen actually. And I liked a lot what Manfred said about we need the pioneers. So how do we get the pioneers? And the pioneers, they will not come when the building is finished. It starts even, so this process with the ÖBB we did with the train station development, it started in 2010 when we said, okay, we want to have 17 plots for an inclusive development that has a concept procedure, as also Nathalie said. So the price is fixed for the house, or the land, let's say, and the developers apply with a project and the social process behind. And that made this project at the Hauptbahnhof so successful because it will be a very vivid area and with a lot of different stakeholders that were all included during the building process, but also in this development process. And I think this is the key of success, to find these pioneers, but actually the city has to determine where this will happen, because there are areas that are more important than others in quarters, and we can activate actually plazas and places by including special building types, let's say, that have a very interesting ground floor area or a plinth that is activated. And of course, there are economic models behind, and I think that we need a multisectoral development, an integrated development that also not only looks at the building, and I mean the Wohnfonds in Vienna is fantastic in doing that, but we need to see it also on the quarter level, and this is, I think, what we can learn from Berlin. But also from Munich, I heard some similar approaches, and actually we need somebody who is taking care about this development. So we need a Kümmerer, we say in German. This is somebody who is really pushing it, and I think this is what we learned in the last maybe 5 or 10 years, and this is the future.
Thank you for your input. This brings me exactly to my second question to Angela Salziger. The question of the Kümmerer. We know that in Vienna, in the development process, when Wohnfonds is on board, or even when we have an IBA Vienna, there is a lot of drive behind the idea of an integrated neighborhood. Who could be the Kümmerers or the advocates for community building after IBA steps out or after the Wohnfonds steps out?
We talked I'm working for Gebietsbetreuung Stadterneuerung. This is a contract of the city of Vienna, and the contract runs over 6 years. And in the districts where we are working, we have also offices there and a team working there. So I think this is one of the most important things, that we live and work together with the people in the new areas, and that there are contracts which runs so long. After the 6 years, we have to apply again, and we hopefully get it again. But this is, for me, it's the most important thing in this area is the time we spend there, the time we spend with the people. And one of our main goals is to merge existing districts with the new ones. So as Roland said already, it's so important to work as early as possible in the areas, because the new districts, they don't start when the competition is over. They all have a long history. So the project from Cologne, the Klut Gummiwerke, reminds me a lot on Neu-Leopoldau, where there was a factory where there was gas extracted out of coal. So it was a no-go area for the whole area around. And now it's a lot of work also with the existing people living there to find new ways through the district and to conquer this new district as well.
Okay, thank you. There was also a question from the audience to Manfred Kühne, something like, how do you tie the relevant institutions together behind common goals? Manfred?
In the beginning, it was just the political setting from the municipal parliament. They decided to buy the property, and with the mission statement for city-owned companies to cooperate, and that's quite a challenge for them. For the initiatives, it was not so difficult. They are eager to rally and to get influence. They are very much challenged because in the last decade, they always became the owner of the property. And it's the first time that the city of Berlin is not selling the property to a Baugruppe, to a self-organized initiative. And so, and of course, it's for us in the Senate department, in the borough administration, we have this mission statement from our parliament. We are free to organize ourselves, and we are expected to find we have a certain time budget to find a self-organizing model that does not exist yet. And then we have to go back to the parliament and tell them, is that what you wanted, to keep the ownership of the municipality of Berlin, but to give affirmed rights to local initiatives, to creative activists to be permanent part of the self-management process of this quarter.
Thank you very much. This also seems to answer part 2 of the question from the audience, which was about do you take certain liberties? Do you overcome certain rules that would hinder your goals up to now? And see, yes, there are new instruments that you're using for that, new solutions.
If I can add one point, because we don't have yet this legal basis that is guarantee the cooperation on equal levels, our administration gives a guarantee for pre-financing the future activities of the initiative. That's very important, because if you don't have already affirmed legal status, you cannot bring in your own money from civil society, from a lot of funding options that we have for non-profit projects.
Okay, thank you. I would like to come to a second aspect, which is if we long for multifunctional districts, for neighborhoods with several functions, not only housing, but only commercial, retail functions and so on, the most tricky stage usually is the one at the very beginning, in the settlement stage, where it's not guaranteed that commercial or cultural or retail or office functions are already working on a economical viable basis. This is a question that goes to all our 3 partner cities in this round. Do you have any methods how to ensure that those additional non-housing functions are somehow sustained through this difficult stage of settlement? Perhaps I give the floor to Eric Diversi first from Cologne. Or anybody else from our group who would like to add something to this?
If you don't mind, I can. The city of Vienna made a policy for creating polycentric Vienna, and it outlined a clear approach how to activate these areas. And this normally works through a management system that we implemented, that were already implemented at 2 sites in Vienna. One is Seestadt Aspern, and the other one is Nordbahnhof. And it works really well. It is managed like the shopping center, but in the public space or in the plinth area, and it's also bringing together a leverage of different prices, that you can have some attractors that have less prices, or cultural issues that are cultural tenants that have low price, and then the normal retailer that they pay the normal price, and then in the end you have equitable budgeting. So that's the activation in the first few years, and there are other projects that are coming up, like Hausfeld, where in the contract with the city, the developers also have to present a management system like that.
Thank you. Perhaps a question to Kurt or Daniel. apart from this model that Roland has just described, this more centralized joint management of retail in the ground floor area, there's also what you showed from the Sonnenviertel, the Quartiershäuser, something like quarter houses, where each project tries to contribute some functions also for the neighborhood. You said at the beginning, Kurt, that this was a process full of creativity, but also full of troubles. Are there already first experiences that you can share with us? Which of the two aspects, the more coordinated one, like in the Seestadt, or the more bottom-up, decentralized process in the Quartiershäuser? What are the plus and minus for those models?
I think both are needed.
Perhaps Kurt first and then Daniel.
So who's on? Okay, thank you. So I think both are needed, and they are completely different. But what was I showed in my introduction was on new social responsibility, we called it, and we also wanted to bring in new actors. And this is more what's happening on Sonnenviertel and on other areas where suddenly people like commons, but not for housing, but for non-housing, are developing. And it brings back the aspect that Roland Krebs mentioned. You need somebody to take care of that and to organize it. This is what did not really happen on Sonnenviertel. There was the local district management that was really helpful, but it was not, in fact, their task. They just jumped in and helped out. But what it really needs is, if you start a process like this, you really also need to plan how developers and the different houses are taken care of. How they need a platform. And of course, you can say, "Oh, help yourself," but that's not really fair if you first ask a lot of questions and then say, "Help yourself." So you then also have to provide some support, and this is what we can learn from that. If we start early, like Roland said, very early, we also need to support very early and do this for a long time. It needs and I think then it can be really successful. The other thing is, like Seestadt, Aspern, Nordbahnhof, this centralized development is extremely helpful as a starting measure, so that others, smaller units and smaller houses, then can get their ground floor filled, because something strong has happened and it pulls the energy into the neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you. Daniel, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, if we have time, I think, of course, in Seestadt Aspern and in Nordbahnhof, it works because areas, but I think for sure we have problems, or we're struggling in these smaller development areas, because I think there it's not so easy to install a central ground floor management. And so I think, therefore, for these small development areas, like also the Sonnenviertel, or the new part of the Sonnenviertel with the Quartiershäuser, I think there we need different strategies, and perhaps we have to be a bit more creative. And I also feeling that from the urban planning, perhaps we foresee a little bit too much commercial space in the ground floor, because commercial and economics are changing quite fast, and I think it's not, or it's sometimes it's a strong wish that in every building, in every house, in the ground floor there is a flat. But I think this is not realistic anymore. We have to find other solutions, other functions for the ground floor, and perhaps also different urban patterns with less ground floor perimeter, and perhaps more living in the ground floor, perhaps in the backyards.
Yes, that brings me also to my next question, which is, in recent housing developers competitions in Vienna, it was more or less the task of the housing developers to come up with solutions for the ground floor, with non-housing functions for the ground floor. Is this something where you have the feeling that they managed to provide this, or is this an additional task which needs also additional actors to provide those functions?
I think we should ask Martin Orner later on this question. I think it's hard to say because all these housing developers are very, very different. There are very small and creative ones, and there are these big tankers. And so for them, perhaps it's more difficult to develop something new for the ground floor. For these smaller actors, perhaps it's more easy.
Okay. I have one question that is kind of already wrapping up and bridging to the next session after the break. Uli Hellwig, the long-standing coordinator of the IBA Hamburg, stated in a recent essay, social housing estates are not automatically bringing social quarters, and social quarters are not exclusively made up of social housing. My question to all cities and also our participants here on our virtual podium is, how can we plan for social diversity? So what are the ideal conditions for inclusion on a neighborhood level? Perhaps I start with someone like perhaps Angela Salzjäger can say something to that.
I think new districts, they are not only out of concrete, they are out of a lot of emotions. So you need to make a new neighborhood. You have to allow experience therein. You have to organize events with positive memories, and all these memories together, they make your history in this new district and starts your living in this new district. So it's like I said before, it's a work which starts with a meadow and the neighbors in the existing area, and we in our work, we work with a lot of different activities and with different people and try to catch different people with different interests and bring them together, and hoping that we find these Kümmerer and people who care for the district when we are not there anymore.
Thank you. Any other recommendations from our partner cities how to plan for social diversity and also manage social diversity I
want to say something because in Munich you are not free to make social housing or not social housing. The city defines it before they allocate the land. So if you applicate for one plot, you know how many social housings or middle housing for München model, it's for the middle, you have to build. And then you have a defined mixture in the areas, which is almost the same.
Thanks a lot. We have...
maybe I can add something from the Berlin perspective.
Sure.
A lack of social diversity is not only a problem for areas where people with low income are concentrated. It's a great challenge for middle class and even for upper class developments, because nothing is more boring than a gated community of middle class and rich people. That's why they also try to crowd inner cities. And I think in many of our cities, the colleagues that are in charge of urban renewal for decades, they have approaches to steer it. And it's not so easy to bring these experiences and the funding that normally, at least in Central Europe, is connected to these policies to new developments. And of course, we try to involve private investors in these activities. And for us, always vacancies are a good option. We force them to create more retail space in ground floors that they can ever fill. And they make so much money. So we can try to find out if they are open for a smart vacancy development strategy and even co-finance it. We don't know how far we can get with this strategy, but we will try to do it and we will see.
Okay, thanks a lot. We have received a few questions from the audience, also receiving concerning the funding scheme in Vienna that Kurt and Daniel presented at the very beginning, and we will come back to that in the second session where we are coming back to the question of affordability and the social housing system. So these questions are not forgotten, but just postponed for after the break. I would also like to inform you that in the break we will show you the graphic recording of our recorder Lana Laurin. So if you stay tuned, you can see that recording in the break. And we will have now, like promised in the program, 15 minutes of break for stretching your legs and get fresh air in. And we hope to see you back in 15 minutes, 10 minutes past 4.